Hey, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Boss Rush for January 16th, 2026. My name is Chris Melasinos. I'm the principal evangelist for video games at AWS, and I'm waiting for my co-host to join me, which we just have seen. Mr. Takahashi is now here in the staging room. So hang on one second here. Hey, hang on there, Dean. All right, I think, let me see. I'm going to shut off your noise suppression. I'm going to turn on your voice isolation, and then I think we're good to go. Although I am hearing a little bit of feedback from your side. So maybe pop down those speakers there, and let me go ahead and bring you in right now. So, hey, here we go. Mr. Takahashi, how are you today, buddy?
Pretty good. Yeah, hopefully you can hear me now.
I can hear you now, and you're all good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
How you been?
Good, man. It would not be Boss Rush if we didn't start up Rocky and, everybody scrambling in. I know that Susan is away getting some errands and stuff done before the weekend. Mark, I know, has been traveling, so he is out and about. So I think it's just going to be you and I holding down the proverbial fort today, Dean.
Okay. Well, right. There is a lot of, stuff going on.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there is. But before that, let's talk about where you've been. And Happy New Year, buddy. This is the first time I'm getting to see you since the beginning of the year started there. You were away at CES, and then you were where?
I was in Miami doing a few days of family things. Had to get a trip out there then for a few days, and got to go put my feet in the Atlantic Ocean for a bit, just relaxing some, but eating some nice Cuban food as well.
Oh,
that was great. But yeah, it was. I was still working away.
Yeah, I don't think whenever you take off, it's never really you just taking time off. Yeah. You know? I know, but we're so glad to have you back here. And yeah, let's go ahead and jump into right now. If Mark winds up joining, I'm not sure if he is today, but if he winds up joining, we'll go ahead and bring him in later. But yeah, Dean, let's go ahead and get straight into it.
Yeah, we had some kind of shocking news from Amir Satvat again on the data that he collects about the game industry and the game jobs. And he's done a spectacular job getting data from more than 5,000 game companies around the world now. And so it's the most transparent look we have into the state of jobs in the industry. And he has figured out that California accounted for a huge percentage of the layoffs that happened in the last 4 years, really. And in 2025 alone, California was 47% of global gaming layoffs. And this is understandable in some way, in that California is still the number one place in the world for game jobs. But it also, reflects the challenges of supporting people and employing them in one of the most expensive places to live in the world as well. And so some of that is, a result of companies moving into lower cost areas, I think. But it's also large transactions that have happened, like the Microsoft acquisition of Activision Blizzard, which is in Los Angeles, really also took its toll. And I think, for the years from 2022 to 2025, California lost 18,838 jobs. And so I think there's a lot of discussion that this can trigger. It's not necessarily useful to do a lot of California bashing about this, but I think the awareness that this has happened, right, is very useful information. I think that maybe people had their impressions that this was happening, especially alongside a lot of layoffs at some of the big platform companies like the Meta and Apple, Amazon, Google, etc.
Yeah.
Sometimes a lot of those layoffs also hit the game companies or the game divisions of those companies too. But these numbers really are associated with direct game jobs. And I think that's interesting. We take that with the notion though that during the same time, there were about 5,000 jobs created in California,
Right.
In the game industry across those 4 years, and so it's some winners and losers kind of effect there happening, where some companies are growing, many companies were cutting back.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and one of the quotes you had in there, from him was that, like Amir said, it's a difficult data set, a grim one, but it's also an important piece of the broader story. And then you said, California added 5,000 game jobs at the same time that lost 18, right? So averaged out, it's still
for North America too is not so bright as well. Like North America accounted for 62% of all of the job losses in 2025. Europe was 24%, Asia 11%, and South America just 3%. So I think it's a very interesting set of data that tells you a lot about the global trends, I guess. Game development is spreading out across the whole world, and there's no reason any one region should have a monopoly on it or a lock on it.
Yeah. No, agreed. And we've been saying for a while now, the industry is changing, and where people are being placed to make games, the type of companies that make them, the size of the companies that make them, are changing. In talking to, students coming out of college that want to enter the games industry, one of the things I've been kind of coaching those that have asked is, where you thought you want to be may not be the place that you will ultimately land. So make sure that you're looking at smaller companies that are starting up. And we saw recently with some of the layoffs that have occurred across the industry, new studios are being formed, right? But these are smaller companies looking for more traditional money. And so their risk envelope is going to look different. Like this is, the knock-on effect or ripple effect that we are seeing with the changing industry. So still a lot to navigate, It's we're there to support each other, colleagues, friends, and certainly the the community that Amir has started, which is now known as Always Supporting Games Community, right? Instead of Amir Satvat's games community, really important. So
and Amir also said he had shared some of this data with Matthew Ball, who's working on his usual sort of annual analysis of the game industry. So looking forward to seeing sort of more narrative on where the game industry is going from that. He also Amir also forecast that the recovery of game jobs in 2026 will accelerate, right? And so the years and years of layoffs have been difficult, but he does not expect 2026 to be as bad a year in that respect as the past few years we've seen. And, despite that, right, one of the first things that happened this year was Meta has decided to close a number of VR studios, and focus, I think, more resources on its AI ambitions. And I guess you could have seen that coming for a while. But nevertheless, it's been, I guess, difficult to see these long time studios like Sanzaru and a few others get closed. And result in sort of an unknown number, but a large number of layoffs. Probably mostly based in California as well.
So Sophie McAvoy on gamesindustry.biz in her write-up here points out Meta shuttered 3 VR studios following that 10% cut to its Reality Labs metaverse arm. That's Twisted Pixel Games, Sanzaru, and Armature Studios. Within the developer VR fitness app, Supernatural will not produce new features or content for the app as part of the closures. And look, I think, obviously, again, terrible and to see these studios close. But when we think about kind of the VR space and some of the struggles, it's achieved to kind of gain that toehold, right? I mean, Meta's been spending a ton of money over the years now, subsidizing hardware and trying to build the base and everything like that. So it's not surprising to see that they're making some of those shifts and pivots. It's just disappointing, right? Because the developers are awesome and they built amazing experiences, in VR. So I don't know what the future is going to be for that hardware, or if the ecosystem now opens up, right? So who knows? But it is interesting because I did read, Dean, some commentary from people saying that I wonder what this is going to look like now for Valve's VR experience, and if that's where kind of a lot of the development effort kind of moves towards. So
it's very interesting to always see the dynamics of competition in the game industry. Like when one big player retreats, it could mean that there's an opportunity for somebody else to grab that market share and go in a big way. So we know that Valve is releasing a new Index headset, VR headset, sometime soon, along with a new game controller and more Linux-based Steam machines, and with this particular one targeted really at replacing game consoles in the front of your TV. Right? Yeah. So it's a very interesting time for that to be happening. I know that, one of the things that I came away from CES with was some great awareness, though, of the high cost of memory chips right now, and everything. All the game, machines are suffering from this right now. I saw one report from an analysis firm that said prices in Q4 for memory chips rose 40 to 50%. And the cause is AI. There's huge demand for AI. This is why NVIDIA is, worth $4.5 trillion in market cap right now. It's bigger than Apple again. Every one of those AI chips that NVIDIA is shipping needs a ton of memory to go with it. Different kind of memory often, but still that's creating a sort of secondary effect of gamers can't get enough for their machines, right? Or they're paying, double what they were paying not so long ago, right? And this is another blow that maybe was in some ways expected, but also just an unexpected problem. So getting your hands on a gaming PC right now is not an easy thing, and we're not sure how long this is going to last. Maybe another 6 months, right?
Yeah. What is really interesting about all of that, Dean, and we're going to talk a bit about, I want to hear your take on Jensen's, conversation at CES. We'll bring that up in a minute here, but I was having a conversation with some folks yesterday, and I was like, yeah, you know what? So they're going to be ramping up fabrication for 30 series cards again, because the remaining 50 series and those sorts of things are going to be priced somewhere around $5,000, right, for those bigger ones as they move that stuff down. And so it's kind of like, all right, well, if you're going to be building, systems around, your new PC around 30 series cards, 1440p gaming is great. You can still run most of those at 60 to 90 frames a second or above on a 30 series. And yeah, this is going to potentially bode well for indie developers, casual game developers, because, right, I mean, they may not be pushing the renderer crushing, 50 series sorts of things. So sorry, folks, you may have to live with, 60, 90, 120 hertz instead of 240 hertz and, frame generation and everything else. We'll still make it through, right? But the fact that NVIDIA, right, of course, that's tongue in cheek, the fact that NVIDIA, built their company on the back of the game space, and then seeing the pivot that that the world seems to be having right now to AI tools and services, right? It's a little disheartening from a industry perspective or a company perspective. I get it, but
yeah, I did hear interesting perspective from Jensen about like how he realizes what kind of history they've had, right? Like, so gaming took off for graphics. GPUs became popular. They became tremendously useful for AI, and AI has come back and delivered things like DLSS 4 to get them like an 8 times improvement in graphics performance. In some cases. And so I think that there is like a symbiotic relationship between gaming and AI. But I think he also, took it as a suggestion. But one of the questions he got at the press conference was, hey, you're making all of these advances in AI. You use them for DLSS 4 in the 5000 series. Now, why don't you go back to something like the 3000 series and retrofit them with better DLSS and improve the performance of the extreme low end using AI, and that can alleviate the problem that has been created by the shortage of memory as well. And so, and he said, this is actually not a bad idea. We're going to look into it.
Well, I hope whoever gave the suggestion, gets their names.
Because it doesn't require more silicon, which is the problem now, right? If silicon itself, every chip you make that goes through the factory can be made as an AI chip, you're going to sell it as an expensive AI chip instead of as a small, secondary chip or something like that. But in this case, it's really the AI software really that is making the improvement that could be used in existing chips, right? So an interesting proposition for them.
Well, let me ask you a question, Dean, as a resident first-person shooter expert, right? How do you feel about DLSS frame generation versus, pure or fully rendered frames coming off the card? Do you find it to be that much of a better experience? Like, what has been your personal experience with using dynamic frame generation versus not?
I haven't really studied it close enough to really understand exactly what it's doing for, say, different games that I have. Some people tell me to turn it off. Some people say, it's just one more thing that you can use. But like, I think that I've been a PC gamer for a while, Got a 5,000 series card last year in a new machine,
Right.
and have not looked back at the consoles. Right, I mean the consoles are 6 years old now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the difference that you see is sometimes staggering, I guess, right? And so, frame generation or not, the machine
Right.
I have now on the PC is just so much better than what I see with. I mean, it caused me to get a brand new monitor, so that was a big investment. One of these OLED monitors that cost $1,200, but but yeah, I am anxiously waiting for the console folks to come out with new machines. But are they going to come out with new machines when RAM prices are double what they used to be a few months ago?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, that remains to be seen. And man, as long as we continue to work in this space, Dean, it just seems like, what's old is new again, right? We saw RAM prices and that stuff happen during the cartridge era. We saw RAM price happen in the earlier PC era. We're seeing it happen again. Anytime there's this rush, right? We kind of pull all those pieces out that go towards that tech, and the knock-on effect can be months, if not years, right, for the secondary markets or the markets that traditionally relied upon those components that can't get access to them before. Owning a chip foundry right now, pretty good business to be in.
Yeah, and I don't see it happening again this time around. But when I got into the industry back in the 1980s, 90s, there was such a shortage of these chips that everybody was complaining about memory chip robberies that were happening in Silicon Valley, right? And that was not a good time, and these folks were getting held up because the prices of memory were so high. I think it's perhaps harder to get away with that now with the tracing of digital chips and all that. I think, but yeah, it's this kind of shortage reminds me of the consequences that happen. When you have,
and I think the unintended consequences are things like what happens when you have, knockoff chips and stuff like that being done at other facilities, relabeled, right, to be what they're not, right, or also include malware, include intrusion, software and things like that on those things. And in the rush for companies to go ahead and get as much as they can, it's important to keep those security protocols in place. It's important to keep, be aware of what you're actually deploying into the space and not just grabbing, kind of letting those slip or lax, right? That's super, super important right now. So, yeah, it's crazy.
What else caught your news watching things like CES from afar?
Well, we went through a bunch of them last week while you were away. Wanted to hear any other thoughts or comments you had coming from Jensen, because I think he talked about like 13 or 14 different pieces of new tech. One of the interesting ones, though, man, I saw the Daily Show, which is amazing. They were doing kind of a CES tech roundup, and there was something, it was called like Lolly Tunes or something like that, where it's a lollipop.
Lollipop Star.
Bone conduction.
One of the funniest things at the show, right? So you have a lollipop with electronics in it. The big electronics part is in a bulb at one end where you hold on to the lollipop on the stick. It's all plastic, and then there's an actual lollipop at the end of the other side of the lollipop with attached to the plastic. You suck on it. You put it in your mouth. You can bite down on it, and then you hear music. And there's one song in each lollipop from a pop star like Akon, and you can hear this music when nobody else can, because it is coming into your ears through your bones.
Right, he's using bone induction.
Bone conduction,
And
that that vibration from the sound in the lollipop transfers through your bones, and you can hear it as music in your ear. It was kind of soft and like a noisy room when I tried it, so I had to put earplugs in, and then once I had the earplugs in, I could hear. Yeah,
and it's crazy, right? So now all I'm thinking of are like silent raves. Right, right. You're given earplugs and a lollipop, and you walk into this rave, and then whatever else you want to use, and then everybody's hearing music, but there's nothing being played out there. It's kind of crazy. And then, like Matthew Anderson said, and then you throw away the plastic and the tech inside. Yep. Yeah, this reminds me. Look, back in my day, we had Peter Paul whistle pops. Do you remember those things? They were a candy whistle, and all you did could blow into it and make a whistle sound. And I know the entire commercial jingle by heart, but I won't throw that there at you. And the only thing you had to throw away at the end of that one was a paper lollipop stick. So, that one is a bit weird. That one is definitely a bit weird, right? Tech finding a problem that doesn't exist.
Yeah, although bone conduction is getting more popular, right? There were different. There was an actual bone conduction audio headset that somebody was showing off, and then the Meta Ray-Ban glasses are a pretty good example of using the bone conduction through the sideband of these big thick sideband glasses are how the sound gets into your ears, and so you can hear music and everything on the glasses, but nobody else can hear it, and nobody else can hear your conversations of somebody talking to you, even though there's nothing plugging into your ear from the glasses, right? So.
Well, that's pretty cool.
There's some very good uses, I think, of bone conduction.
Oh, for sure. For sure. They've been, I mean, look, years ago, do you remember they were talking about, there's going to be this phone. It's just like you kind of strap this device to your hand and then you just do this. And it would basically use the bone in your pinky as the microphone and then your finger in your ear as the speaker. And you're just like, okay. I don't necessarily want to be walking around like that. Yeah, see? Wait a minute. Nicole Lazara says, or Chitty Chitty Bang Bang Toot Sweets. That's right, those Toot Sweets. Oh, my goodness gracious. So funny. Also, since we're talking about music, I should make a comment. By the way, Dean, I loved your reposting of the link to this week's live stream with what was just your entire comment. And go ahead.
Can you explain your description of it?
I sure can. That is from a Beastie Boys song called What You Want, because, I always put a Beastie Boys lyric as the top of every post that I do. And it's like a dream we're flown without no stopping, sweeter than a cherry pie with Reddy Whip topping. And Reddy Whip is whipped cream in the can, spelled REDDI. And we're bouncing mic to mic between our mics, kicking wall to wall, and be calling out the news like a casting call. So that's where that comes from. It's a Beastie Boys lyric. So I appreciate the what, and no, it had no other meaning other than it's from an amazing song from one of the greatest hip-hop groups of all time, Beastie Boys. So, anyway, that's where that comes from, buddy.
Yeah.
All right, you asked about some other news. There was this one that popped up here. Hello Kitty maker Sanrio names Craig Takaguchi, CEO of U.S. and Americas. And one of the scenes that I popped to as we started the live stream here by accident, right, was this chart, which was about the 25 highest grossing media franchises of all time. And Hello Kitty is just behind Pokemon, right?
Wow.
Which is amazing. And look at everything else underneath it, right? Star Wars coming in, fifth down on that list. Harry Potter, right? All the way down. Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, Hello Kitty is just a massive property. And, it's more than just games. But, do you want to talk a bit about about this appointment?
Well, I think it's a good choice, an interesting choice. I've interviewed Craig before, and in most of those occasions, it was because they're doing something in games, right? And so I associate their push into being a modern franchise and moving into games with Craig Takaguchi. And they've got a VR game that I think just went into early access over the holidays. Hello Kitty Skyland, right? And then they had Hello Kitty Adventure as a broader,
the Island Adventure, Hello Kitty Island Adventures, yeah.
And that was extremely popular, right? It was on bestseller lists as well, and it was also way back in 2022 when they launched a Hello Kitty game inside Roblox, and it was a funny thing they had to wrestle with back then, which was, they show up and they talk to Roblox and say, hey, we'd like to do a game on top of Roblox. However, we find that we are already on Roblox. All of these unauthorized pirated things are out there on Roblox already. We're going to show up with one more game.
Dean, we call them. Dean, we call those homages, right? They're not. They're knockoff, right? They're
pirated is a pejorative for sure word, but I think brands look at it that way. Like that's their first reaction. It's like, why do you allow all of this piracy on top of Roblox? It's like, well, it's user generated. It's fan fiction, right? It's fan created, and do you really want to shut all that down? Because they're the ones that have prepped the way for Hello Kitty to be welcomed on top of Roblox because it's a familiar thing. So, and I think they made their peace with that, and pretty much decided, we're going to try to do the best Hello Kitty game on top of Roblox, right? So,
and but this is kind of the constant struggle that IP owners and distribution channels, stuff like that, have to constantly contend with. I remember years ago having conversations with lawyers in Washington around, motion picture fandom. And I remember one earnest legal professional in the room saying, well, how do we go ahead and kind of, sue the people that are using this IP? And I'm like, you're talking about going after the people that are literally taking, hours and hours and hours of their personal lives to go and create fandom for you for free that drives the continuation, adoption, right, of those principal IPs. Instead of doing that, perhaps figure out a way to engage them, because if they feel they're part of your success, they will basically police your stuff 10 times better than you ever can. Right? And so there is a difference between somebody taking IP to monetarily damage a company versus somebody who is such a fan of your IP that they want to kind of extend that and champion it, right? So
I remember talking to some of the game makers at, say, GameFam, right? And they would say that, a lot of the brands, they come in, but they don't understand the platform and they don't understand what people want to do on it. And the first thing they ask us to do is create some game experience where we have like a town hall for our brand, the Vans World type thing or whatever.
And, your hub world.
And, the reaction that the Game Fam people had, it's like, no, that's not going to work, right? What people want to do in Roblox is play games. So you just got to show up with a game, not a lobby, right?
Right. I mean, people know when they're being marketed to, right? And if you don't do that correctly, it can come across not only as disingenuous, it can actually hurt your brand because it's, hey, fellow kids type of moment, right? Walking through the door and not understanding who your audience is and how to engage them organically as part of a community authentically, right? If you're just going there to pitch to them, nope. I mean, they got 40 million other distractions inside of Roblox that they can leap to, right? So. Yeah. All right. Well, talking about IP and other big old properties, have you been watching the new season of Fallout? by chance?
I veered off into watching I guess what would be reruns of 11/22/63 on Netflix instead. So I watched that whole season, but I did watch the first episode of Fallout season 2. So I have much to look forward to. I'm not such a fan of waiting every week to watch it. Right?
Sure, that's why you let it stack up a little bit. But again, another piece by Sophie McAvoy was sales of Fallout games spike over Christmas following the launch of a new TV season. So Fallout 4 experienced a peak of almost 100,000 Xbox players in early January, according to analyst data. So, once again, this is another way that multiple forms of media and content, right, can lean in to help your game purchases and to kind of regenerate interest there. This one was really cool. Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 4 experienced a notable growth in sales in January 7th, with New Vegas reaching almost 8,000 units sold and Fallout making it to 3. Daily active users was a significant spike for Fallout 4 and Fallout 76 in the days following Christmas. So, yeah,
and
once again,
they greenlit another reality show for Fallout Shelter now.
Yeah, exactly. A real life Fallout shelter. I mean, that can go, that can be really amazing. And I just want to see how the fan base will react to that, or go, why aren't you using this vault number or that vault number? Well, there's some vaults that may not be appropriate for wider audience consumption. We'll leave that to true fans of the of the game through the game. So yeah.
I think I'm sure they wish that they had more games that are fresh and brand new available to sort of get the benefit of all of that. But yeah, every company that's done a game, movie, or TV adaptation has been saying that they see a spike in sales, right? Nintendo, etc., and even Borderlands, with like what was a completely failed movie, right? Borderlands saw a spike in its game sales as well. It's interesting to see all of the activity, and when I interviewed Patrick Soderlund from Embark Studios about Arc Raiders, and he said in the interview, which we did in game, which was fun, was that they had already been approached with many offers for movie and TV shows, right? And that was for a game that released on October 30th.
Yeah. Video game IP is among the absolute hottest in Hollywood right now. Like, everybody's trying to figure out where those next,
And we started the show talking about the woes of California. What the woes of the game industry in California are nothing compared to the woes that Hollywood has gone through in California. Right?
Yeah.
So I think when something works, they are beelining to make movies and TV shows based on that content.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. So speaking of content and large amounts of content, there was this interesting article again that popped up by our friends over there at gamesindustry.biz. Shovelware is a bigger problem than ever. Platform holders need a robust response. Sony's place by Rob Fahey over there. Hey, Rob. Sony's PlayStation Store is a slightly tidier place this week. The company delisted around 1,000 SKUs, which translates to a little over 100 actual games from a single developer in a single sweep. Right? It's not clear whether this was an isolated case or perhaps indicates a more rigorous attitude towards shovelware from the platform holder. And then they have a screen grab of this. Look, this is something that we went through as an industry twice already. We're on the cusp of a third one, right? Of so much shovelware copies, palette and asset swaps and things like that can come in and frustrate players, frustrate consumers, because it looks really close to the original, but they're not looking at it carefully enough, and then, right, it could be, I'm not saying that this developer was doing this, but it could contain, again, malicious code, kind of all of these things. And we're only going to see that accelerate with purely AI developed, games kind of moving into the space. So it is a really difficult place to look at right now. Our friend Darren Glasson says, now do that on the Nintendo eShop. Yeah, they have a lot of that in there too. So it's going to be really interesting to, Dean, to see how the industry kind of responds to this.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'll leave with one other thought on that. I remember looking on YouTube and rather on LinkedIn, and then there was a company that said, "Oh, we have an AI engine that can make games. We made 200 games in a week," and I'm like, "What?" When you say game, what do you mean exactly, right? 200 pachinko variants because wallpaper and audio changed. Like, this is something that, as an industry, utilizing these tools to their best effect, but also recognizing the problems that can emerge from the tools, right? So still a bit of the Wild West right now, but it's good that storefronts are kind of looking at what's making it in there and how they retain the trust, right, with their player base and with customers, right? So yeah, no answers to any of that, just some commentary there.
Yeah, it reminds you of all the mobile games where this has happened, and the app stores had to constantly clean things up.
Yeah.
It's nice that the platforms do this, although perhaps a bit more screening on the front end is really the way you do this. You just stop these things from going in. Like we're going to get a lot more of it with all the quote unquote AI slop that is coming as well, right?
Yeah. Yep. For sure. I only had two other. Well, actually, I got three pieces here for you. Actually, I got four quick stories here that popped up too. One was, again, from our friends over there at gamesindustry.biz. Direct-to-consumer transactions have become a core scalable revenue system. It says AppCharge 2025 was reportedly the inflection point for app-to-web payments, web stores, and alternative distribution models.
I know Excel quite often says that the usual observation they have about somebody opening up their own store, their own direct-to-consumer store from, say, developer to consumer is something like 10 to 16% improvement in sales, right?
Yeah.
And it's not cannibalizing your existing app stores so much. You're reaching new players,
right?
You also have the advantage of just having a direct relationship with them and understanding, what they like and hearing feedback from them, without having to go through a platform, right? So.
Yeah. And I think, look, this just opens up more optionality, right, for developers. You said to reach new players or players that may not, have. Believe it or not, there are still some that don't have, direct payment set up on their mobile platform or something like that, or don't want to have it there, right? So again, this just provides additional optionality in the fact that we are starting to see that open up, especially in mobile, right? Mostly for iOS, of course, in non-US markets, but Android more directly, right, is good, right? Just again, more options for people for companies to engage with their fans, more opportunities for fans to choose where and how they're spending their money against those things. So I think that's great.
Yeah. I did want to chat a bit more about Jensen's Q&A.
Yeah, let's go.
At CES. I guess the wonderful thing about him, I've covered him from the very beginning, right? And wrote the very first story ever on NVIDIA back in our mid-90s. And he has always sort of been this way of like being a CEO who's not afraid to answer questions, and especially questions from the press. And he had, staged I think what, was one of the rarest things at CES, which was a 90-minute session with about a couple of hundred people from the press, right? Most of the things that happen at CES are presentations of keynotes where, they are talking at you, but they are not answering your questions. So Jensen does this for 90 minutes and he doesn't have to look anything up. Like, he always has an answer ready for whatever question gets thrown at him, whether it's like, how do you do the handoff when a self-driving car runs into a problem and it can't solve it, and it decides, oh, let's see if the human can solve this instead, right? And he said you never can solve that problem, and so don't actually put that situation in place, right? And so your self-driving car has to handle every situation if you're going to have a self-driving car, or just have the person drive, right?
Right.
You can't so easily just press a button and switch, right? But he has a command on the technology. But also, because he's working with the entire ecosystem of technology now, he also has more elevated views of things that are happening, right? And like, why are these things happening? Is it a bubble? Well, we're looking 4 or 5 quarters ahead, and we have $500 billion in deals that are coming. So, you tell me, is that a bubble? It's different from the kinds of bubbles where there was a lot more just nothing there, right? Or hype, right? He believes, here, take the tough questions, like, is this going to destroy a lot of jobs? And here say, no, I believe, just like in any technology transition we've had, that a new technology coming along is going to create more jobs. There's going to be a whole lot of disruption for sure. But, he's saying that the science fiction doom scenarios, I think he said in separate Q&A, are not so helpful anymore, right? I think he also points to just labor shortages for things like truck drivers and whatever, right? So that's their argument. He's not, afraid to take those questions. I asked him about the problem of, the doubling of the price of memory, and what gamers are going to do about that, and are gamers just going to be angry about AI because of this, right? And he didn't really answer that. But he did talk about like the efforts that they have put into making sure they have enough memory in the supply chain and all that.
Sure.
I also asked him if he wishes he had been a DRAM manufacturer. But yeah, I think, we posted on this now, the entire Q&A, put it up this morning, and, organized it into different sections. People asked him a lot of questions about, the chips they're trying to get authorized to sell in China, things like that.
Yeah. No, and I agree with you. I love the approach that he takes. He is truly one of the most hands-on CEOs and accessible CEOs at that level that we have in the entire industry. And it's also because he is acutely aware of what's happening in every part of the company and how all of those pieces come together. What I do, also appreciate is the honesty and the candor around things like, self-driving automobiles. And this, we run into this all the time in technology development cycles, right? The rush from 0 to 70% usability really, really fast, right? In any major cycle. It's that last 30%. And as you continue to try to close it down to the 100%, the amount of energy, effort, and problem solving grows exponentially, right, with each percentage. And so getting to fully autonomous vehicles with the technology that we have in place right now, where it's also cost effective and, is going to... I mean, that's just not a horizon line that anybody within this space can actually claim to close, because we just can't. One of the things that I did find, really interesting about companies that offer self-driving cars is to not have a operator in a control center take control of the vehicle. What typically happens is it's prompting the car to go ahead and make adjustments and say, instead of doing X, try doing Y. And then you let those onboard systems do that. Because when you have the ability to control that remotely, it opens it all up to things like man-in-the-middle attacks and lawsuits and things like that, right? And so you are really relying on the onboard computation of those cars, and they vary in types, right? From full-on LiDAR and, SLAM processing to, just image recognition from a couple of cameras. So very difficult problems to solve for. But yeah, getting to that 70-80% is typically the easiest part of the journey, easy in quotes, right? It's closing that last 20% because, that's where that's where people get hurt. That's where, right, problems that you can't solve, that humans are incredibly, equipped to deal with, where current systems just aren't, And Dean, it did remind me, there was a quote from another tech executive focusing on robotics saying that, going to medical school, like, you shouldn't have to do it because robots in the next several years will be able to do the job better than any surgeon would. And so you don't even need to do that anymore. And that kind of rhetoric, right, is also what hurts the adoption development of stuff when you can't meet those incredible claims in the timelines that you're talking about. So, yeah, it feels like the web again, man. All over 1997, right?
Yeah. There are a couple more stories that were interesting.
Yeah, let's go.
This week, Arc Raiders announced that they actually reached 12 million players. Now. And that was pretty amazing because they did launch 2 weeks after Battlefield 6 launched. And they launched 2 weeks before Call of Duty Black Ops 7. And they made this game with 110 people, which is far lower than either of those rival games.
Yep.
And I did the interview with Patrick Soderlund and Owen Mahoney, former CEO of Nexon, while we were playing Arc Raiders, and we had great fun playing the game together, and we killed a leaper. We were looting the leaper's remains, and then somebody else, some other party, came upon us and killed us and took our loot. Right, that kind of thing just happens in Arc Raiders, and you can see so easily why it's just so much fun, and why it's a sort of a fresh take on shooters and co-op games and proximity chat with strangers, right? And strangers can either kill you, leave you alone, or actually team up and try to take down big things together, right? And so it's just very interesting player dynamics that happen in this. So I'm glad to see it, doing so well, and our video that we did on that was probably the best video we've ever had in terms of viewers. And we had some news, like, they confirmed they do skill-based matchmaking and also aggression-based matchmaking, where if you are likely to kill other players, then they will pair you with other people who are similar. And then Drake Star also had some interesting M&A numbers that came out. I mean, they noted that, we could have the biggest year ever for acquisitions because of the $55 billion EA deal and the pending Warner Brothers deal. But they also noted that game investments in Q4 were up. So 137 companies had gotten funding in Q4. Compared to something like 105. I think a fair amount of those companies had to do with AI in games. But still, I think to see an improvement on a quarterly basis for what has been a struggling game industry, I think is very positive, and I think it shows that investors are still very interested at the bottom of the startups in the industry, as well as just the giant M&A deals that are happening.
Yeah. Yeah, well, speaking of companies that have raised and did all that, you had a piece on GamesBeat about Tail Monster Games raising $30 million for casual mobile gaming, right? So.
Yeah, and they're based in Turkey, and it's another match-3 game development team with roots in Peak. And so, like, because they had the one successful company that got bought for a lot of money by Zynga way back when, it keeps on regenerating different startups from different teams that are spinning off of that core company, and it's created this whole vibrant ecosystem in Turkey for mobile games. I mean, like, they're the match-3 capital of the world right now.
Yeah. And it is funny, people are like, well, match-3, how much can you really do with it? I remember when Henry Hatsworth dropped on the DS years ago, right? That combined match-3 with side-scrolling, action platformer, and it was great. There's a lot of innovation that can be done still around those core mechanics. So really good to see, again, another studio spinning up to make great games that are accessible to a massive audience. So yeah, congratulations to them. $30 million for casual mobile gaming. That's pretty awesome. Mm-hmm. Pretty awesome. Well, Dean, I know we're coming up to the end of the hour here. So tell us what is on the horizon for you all. Do you want to talk about upcoming GamesBeat events or activities going on, and which conference are you off to next?
I'll be going to the DICE Summit in mid-February, so February 10th through 13th in Las Vegas, and that's always fun. I'm going to try to shoot some video while I'm there.
Okay.
Something relatively new for us. We have this big show podcast that we're doing.
Yeah.
And then for March, I'm going to go to our whole team is going to be at GDC and GDC Festival of Gaming, and we're going to have a side event called Crossfire, where we're going to do multiple debates because again, we like the sort of transparency of having arguments about different trends in the game industry. So there's that, and then May 18th and 19th we're going to have GamesBeat Summit in the Marina del Rey Marriott in Los Angeles again, and we're getting speakers together for both those sizable events. I think I'm going to go to Brazil again for Gamescom Latam toward the end of April. So yeah, it's going to be a busy year again, and we're always moving fast, but it feels like sometimes this is accelerating. It's good that we have other people on the team, like Rachel Kaiser and Alex Lee and David Jagno now. So we're getting it done.
Excellent. Yeah, you all are leaning into a ton of stuff. If you're still looking, I may want to throw my hat into your Crossfire one, but I need to also make sure that that's acceptable, one for me to participate in. But, I got some stuff to say. And then also we're going to be hopefully having a Boss Rush space at GDC in kind of their podcast space. And so we'll be there doing, round the clock discussions and pull people in. So I'm sure we're going to have to, interrupt your schedule to make sure that we get you on as well. But yeah, a lot of stuff coming. Not sure if I'm going to be at DICE. We have to wait and see. I just got back from a conference earlier this week, an internal conference with the studio, and let's just say studio. And just a lot of stuff going on before we roll up to GDC. But why don't we just jump in now and talk about what we're playing? So what are you playing, Dean?
I didn't play much of anything while I was traveling a lot. So getting back to some Arc Raiders, doing more Clair Obscur as well. And I did a preview of a game that's coming, and that'll be out soon. But just getting back to it now.
Yeah, awesome. I haven't had a real chance to do a whole lot of new gaming with travel and everything that was up. But one of the things I did do was reloaded Rich Whitehead's Jaguar emulator on my Steam Deck and went and started playing some old Jaguar games again on the go. And it's, you have to be really committed, right, to Jaguar and game history to suffer through some of those games. There are a couple of beautiful gems in there, but yeah, not a whole lot of time to play right now. But we'll be kind of rectifying that in the coming weeks. And then when we get a chance, we should also talk about an interview that Sean Layden had done, a podcast where he alluded to working on a television series that is kind of like the Mad Men for the games industry. That is a project that I'm also attached to outside of my role here at AWS. And as we have more information to talk about, we'll be sharing it here first. And then we also have Susan and Lee over there at 10-6 Games. They did a podcast or an interview recently and showed off their new game, Zombies versus You, or You versus Zombies. And so we definitely want to go ahead and do a preview of that here. I know we saw a trailer once, but now we got to play it here. But yeah, that's it. That's all the news I've got for today. I want to thank my buddy Dean Takahashi for being here today. I don't know where Mark is. Hopefully he's just traveling and everything is okay, that we know that Susan is away getting,
Susan, by the way, is going to be part of our Crossfire debates on the sort of the AI debate.
Okay, yeah. Well, she's going to be the perfect person to lean in on that for sure. Yeah. But with that, that's going to go ahead and wrap up Boss Rush for this week. I want to thank you all for joining us. Make sure you tell your friends and colleagues about the program that we do here every week. I hope you have an awesome rest of your day, an excellent weekend, and we will see you next week on Boss Rush. Thanks, gang. Bye.
All right. Thanks.